Clair Obscur Expedition 33 shouldn't even exist, yet based on it recently coming out and taking the industry by storm, it seems like what this game is, and what it represents, is everything the mega publishers who control everything don't really want to exist in video games today. And yet everyone seems to be playing it, and I'm currently about 8 or 9 hours into the experience myself, and yeah, it's special, let me tell you. But what I've noticed about this game is that the upbringing and creation of Clair Obscur has done what some might deem impossible in today's gaming landscape. Cause Clair Obscur isn't just a great game, it's an embarrassment when you compare it to what the industry's been pushing for years. You can call it a wake-up call, exposing, whatever you want to make it sound more convincing, but Clair Obscur just shamed the industry with its existence in the best way possible. To give you the basic setup without any real spoilers, the game is about a group of people sent out on an expedition to face some being that is named the Paintress. I'm not really sure yet who the Paintress is since I haven't met her in game yet, but the idea is that this world that you're in is hinging on collapsing due to how many people are dying that are trying to stop this apocalypse from happening pretty much. And the game starts off with this beautiful farewell ceremony as loved ones say goodbye and depart to face this godlike being that keeps inching closer to their obliteration. And you play as Gustav, who looks like Robert Pattinson kind of, and I didn't know this, but he's voiced by Charlie Cox. Yeah, the MCU's Daredevil is the main character guy here, which is a cool surprise, I gotta say. But what I love about Clair Obscur so far is despite it being a Western game, it smartfully hasn't made any of its characters feel insufferable or tied down to any stupid ideologies that exist in our real world. I haven't heard or seen anything dumb or condescending in this game yet. This game's world, which is clearly inspired by French architecture, music, and more. I mean, the development team Sandfall Interactive is French after all, but despite it having this connection, the world just feels wholly unique, otherworldly, and at times alien even. I have a good feeling I know what the Paintress really is, but I don't want to say my theory because it might be a spoiler, but let's just say this game's world and its mythology, it's captivating and it's instantly interesting and it all just kind of pulls you in. The game also works as a turn-based battle system, which may turn people off, but hear me out first. Look, I've played hundreds of turn-based games. I'm a veteran of Final Fantasy and more, and I gotta say that the battle system on offer here is easily one of the best turn-based systems there's ever been in a video game so far. You don't just click X and then watch. Well, the basic attack is that, sure, but every ability or skill has timed button presses that you click at certain times, and this then leads to the attacks gaining power. You must also time button presses even when using healing spells too, beyond the time button presses, which feels a lot like Legend of Dragoon's Edition system, which, man, that's a throwback, but Legend of Dragoon was one of my favorite JRPGs growing up. I still pour a little bit out for my guy Lavitz, and that game's battle system was way ahead of its time too. And Clair Obscur, that feels like a modernized, reimagined, and evolved version of what Legend of Dragoon was doing back in the 90s, but in the best way possible. Outside of the timed button addition system, you can also parry attacks, dodge them, and eventually jump over certain attacks and counter them too. The parry system especially will feel right at home for people who play, and this was a weird connection to me, but trust me, it works, but Souls-likes, actually. Games like Sekiro or Kazan and more are all games I love so much, and the parrying in those games, if you played it will pay off when you're playing Clair Obscur, believe me. Because the game has this satisfying parry system where you can block almost every attack and do big damage in return. And learning the enemy's movements, which aren't difficult in my opinion to read, again, maybe because I played so many Souls-likes, but the fact that DNA connects to this game is really weird, but man is it awesome to me. You also have finite healing potions and such too, which also reminded me of having my Estus flask in, say, Dark Souls. And just like Dark Souls and other games like it, your Estus flasks and other healing items only replenish when you rest at a flag site, which is basically your bonfire pretty much. Don't get scared thinking this game is hard though, trust me it isn't, plus it has difficulty settings that you can change at any time. And difficulty does not affect trophies or achievements either, so you can play this on easy and do just fine, so don't worry. But the fact that the game has that Souls-like DNA in it is kind of wild, but badass as hell. And the way the entire game has told its story so far, it's also giving me, vibe connections to other JRPGs that I've played in the past. The obvious connection here would be games like Final Fantasy X, X or Final Fantasy IX, and weirdly enough, it reminds me of Final Fantasy Type 0 if you ever played that one. Type 0 was about young soldiers going to war to fight to the death, and Clair Obscur's setup and how it's playing out, it feels similar to me, in a good way. That you have these people that are in this terrible situation, not because they want to be in there necessarily, but because they have to in order to defend their home from this godlike being, I guess. So the combat is incredibly satisfying if you enjoy turn-based games, and I think the way this battle system works is that it will even entertain and probably entice action RPG fans due to how quick-paced it is and how it's all designed. The level up system too and how that works also ties into other games you've maybe played as well. The Picto system is where you equip different abilities, and once you win a certain amount of battles with that Picto attached, your entire party learns that ability and then they can all use it. Then you have Lumina points. Think of these like ability points. And then you're able to spend your Lumina, sort of like how in Final Fantasy IX did it with their gear having abilities that you then equip, and you can customize each member to have whichever ability you want on. So you can turn characters into, say, big time bruisers, who do big basic damage and leave enemies defenseless with their attacks, or turn someone into a marksman and have their gunshots burn their enemies and also cause a status effect that's called Mark to happen, which then makes them take more damage. But then you can use magic powers to burn your enemies, and then for example, you have one character whose name is Mael, I think her name is Mael, that's how you say it, but anyway, she's the redheaded girl, and her whole entire kit is based on stances, and for example, she could enter a powerful stance where she does double damage with her next attack if she uses certain abilities against enemies that, for example, are on fire. But Mael could also use other abilities she has to change her stance so she can become either offensively based or even defensively based given the situation. Then you have the main character Gustav. His skill set is more simple but still very effective. Pretty much, so far anyways, Gustav works with something called charges. Every time he hits an enemy, he gains one charge. And Gustav has a robotic arm similar to Nero and Devil May Cry 5, and the idea is once you get Gustav to 10 charges in his robotic arm, you can then discharge that buildup in an explosive blast called Overcharge that does massive damage to a single enemy. I'm sure Gustav's kit will evolve as I play, but there's so much more to it too. You even have skill points that you get when you level up, and then you can allocate it like Dark Souls into your strength or your health or your luck and your speed and so on. And then you have Lune, who is my favorite character in the game. She's this badass Asian woman who's basically like Yennefer from The Witcher. And Lune's system has to do with elemental stains. Whatever element she uses, it gives her a stain of that element. So you use fire, you get fire stain. Then you can spend those to do cool things with your abilities in combat. There's more characters too, but I don't want to spoil anything beyond that for you. But the idea is that every single character has a totally unique skill set with their own mechanics that are wholly unique to just them. And it may sound overwhelming, but it really isn't, trust me. But it makes combat very interesting because you're able to balance all of these mechanics that each character can do. And then as you play, you'll start realizing that, oh wow, if I have Lune and Mael on my team, I can use Lune to burn enemies and have Mael attack them with certain moves that are in her skill set alone, to then make her enter that special stance where she does even more damage, or giving Lune and Mael abilities using their Lumina points to make them gain ability points in combat and extra critical hit damage when those enemies are marked. And you can mark them by giving Gustav an ability that makes it so that his gun can mark enemies when he shoots them, and then you can see how one thing will lead to another that leads to another. And yeah, it's deep but really rewarding to figure this all out on your own. Beyond the Picto system, the game also has a skill tree for every character that unlocks as you play the game. Each skill on the tree for each hero isn't something basic like +5 attack or something. Instead, every skill node is a brand new mechanic or ability you can then use that has their own animations and whatever else that ties into that character's unique skill set. For example, Mael can unlock abilities to give everyone protection against damage, or she can use another ability to take damage in place of other characters. But then you can also arm Mael with Pictos that increase her counterattack damage and then give her ability points when she successfully counters or dodges attacks. So in a way, you can turn all the heat onto her alone, and then she's almost like a tank in like an MMO raid group. And then you can just start dodging and parrying and jumping over attacks and dealing massive counter damage to enemies while you keep your companions safe. That's awesome. And what I also love is that the game does reward your skill too. At one point I entered an area that was clearly not meant for me yet. We've all been there in a game. You ever play something and you enter somewhere and enemies are like two-shotting you and you go, uh-oh, I probably should leave? Yeah, so I entered one of those areas. Anyway, if this was like other JRPG games and stuff like that, I would be forced to just leave, because even in old school Final Fantasy games, you can't really rely on dodging or blocking when it comes to enemies clearly that are way stronger than you usually. But again, due to the fact that Clair Obscur allows you to parry, dodge, and more, I was able to make my way through this huge level that I'm not even done yet. I actually stopped playing the game to write this video first, but I was killing enemies that I had no business fighting yet. But again, because the game rewards skill and my many hours playing Souls-likes have tempered me, I was able to move around enemy attacks and still defeat them. I was even beating mini-bosses, which were definitely outside of my character's damage and health pools by a large margin. One attack from any of these mini-bosses would pretty much kill me, and sure, I would die here and there, but I would just come back and fight the mini-bosses again, because I was able to read their tells or deflect or dodge their moves, and lo and behold, I would still beat them anyways. And then when you beat these guys, I would get wicked weapons. Like for example, I beat one boss and I got an amazing weapon for Lune that was far higher leveled and powerful than she had any right to have at that point in the game, but that's why it's awesome, and it has that Souls-like connection to it that I'm saying. Because if this were like any other RPG or whatever, I would be forced to just run away with my tail between my legs. But since Clair Obscur actually rewards your exploration and skill, you can technically fight anything as long as you're good enough at understanding the mechanics and the enemy movements, which is dope, dude. I should also mention the levels are weirdly huge, and I wasn't prepared for how big many of the levels are so far. No, it's not open world or anything, but the way the game's levels are designed, there's plenty of hidden areas, mini bosses, and more to find as you play it. I've found things like extra healing charges, revives, new weapons, pictos, you name it. There's plenty of areas off the beaten path too that you can discover as well. I once found a battle arena where I could fight these paintbrush looking creatures in 1v1 combat. And I was able to complete it, and I got a bunch of new abilities that specifically powered up my characters if they fought solo. There's a lot to find is what I'm saying, and from what I understand, I'm still on the first continent. I guess you could say still. I'm almost level 19, and the amount of things I've found in the 9 or so hours I've played is staggering. But what's crazy about Clair Obscur is that it shows and proves that we don't need modern gaming to go in the direction that it's currently heading in. As you all know, Nintendo is trying and sadly successfully pushing the new meta of $80 American digital and $90 for physical games. Nintendo Switch 2s are sold out everywhere pretty much, and my fear is that other companies will inevitably follow suit and make their games $80 or $90 as well, like Nintendo. But here comes Clair Obscur, and it's only $65 Canadian at release, or I guess $50 American. Yet the amount of polish, grandness, depth, and mechanics, all of it is so well and beyond anything I've seen in most AAA releases in the past few years and then some. By the way, Clair Obscur isn't even AAA technically, it's an indie game actually. You could call it AA, I guess, but the point is that the game is not full priced, nor was its budget anywhere near the scope of say Assassin's Creed Shadows or something like that. But what's also wild to me is that Sandfall Interactive, which are the devs behind Clair Obscur, they're only 30 people in total. You heard that right, 30 people made this game. It took them 5 years to do it, but the fact that a game of this scope and grandness was made by a fraction of the studio size that it took to make something like Assassin's Creed Shadows is genuinely insane to me. And the reason why I keep bringing up Shadows is for good reason, because in case you didn't know, Sandfall Interactive is made up mostly of ex-Ubisoft devs. Yeah, I know. This game was made by developers who worked on Assassin's Creed, Rayman, Rainbow Six Siege, and so on. Sandfall Interactive also posted this on Twitter saying, "We are currently the top reviewed game on Metacritic for 2025. Speechless. So many incredible games have been released this year. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." Wow, look at that. A game that has reached the mid-90s on Metacritic, and the developers aren't smug about it at all. They're just thankful. They're not attacking fans or banning them from Discord moderation groups or policing their languages or pushing stupid identity politics or making the women insufferable girl bosses and the men sniveling weaklings. They just made a video game that didn't talk down to anyone and instead focused on the game's story and magic, on ensuring the game's world feels familiar but removed from reality just enough that none of the stupid real-world politics that we know are plaguing it. No body type A or B, nothing like that. It's just a video game like we used to buy and play back in the day. And it's so refreshing. Oh my god, it's so nice to see, guys. You have no idea. And the way these devs are acting with their fans is how you should do it. They're not alienating people based on political or religious factions. They're just accepting players from everywhere, and with their game, they're saying this is not a political statement. Hell, it's not even going to break your bank account buying this. It's just a video game made by people who love the medium, and that's beautiful if you ask me. Like I said, this game was made by ex-Ubisoft developers, and I think I speak for us all where I say, where the hell were these people within Ubisoft this whole time? Because Ubisoft hasn't made a critically acclaimed game in a really long time. Maybe the last time they did a Rayman was their best reviewed game, maybe, and that's been like, what, 10 years at least. And I think what Clair Obscur proves more than anything to me is that it raises the question of just how many of these sorts of devs like these people who made Clair Obscur exist right now in the industry as we speak. How many talented devs are there out there, right now who are clearly capable of making peak but are also being chained down by these companies to deliver these slop simulators and rehashed by the numbers open world franchise tied games instead? Because these devs here, some of them worked on Assassin's Creed, and look, I beat Shadows, I reviewed it for the channel, and if you put a gun to my forehead right now, I couldn't tell you most of the side content or even the main quests that I did in that game because they're so forgettable. The story was awful. The political statements being made in it were terrible. Yasuke was so forced so heavily. They even say at one point in that game that he's the greatest samurai after only being in Japan for 6 months. The guy didn't even know what a katana was half a year ago. Come on, Ubisoft, you can't be serious. And yet that game, Shadows was made by thousands of developers. It took well over 5 years and then some to be created, and likely costed 10 or 15 times the budget of what Clair Obscur did in comparison, if not even more than that. Yeah, look at their reception both critically and player-wise from Clair Obscur, and now compare it to Shadows. Completely different receptions. There was so much animosity and hate for Shadows, and rightfully so, all the force damaging to the shrines. The complete disregard for Japanese history, Yasuke being implemented as a playable character. I could keep going. I've done videos on this before. I'm just going to keep moving, but anyways. But put it this way, okay? If you compare Assassin's Creed Shadows Steam chart numbers to Clair Obscur, it's kind of insane really, because Clair Obscur has already surpassed the highest concurrent player count that Shadows is able to achieve. Reminder that Shadows released on a Thursday, which is the same day of the week that Clair Obscur did as well, so it's a nice comparison. And both these games had similar release windows, and Clair was able to obtain more concurrent players in one day versus Shadows having the entire weekend to itself. That's actually insane. Remember too that the Oblivion remaster is out right now as well, so the fact that Clair is getting these numbers is actually insane given the competition that it's facing. And Sandfall Interactive also recently posted that Clair Obscur has also passed 500,000 copies sold already within one day. That's copies sold, by the way. Unlike Ubisoft, who was using their, certain language like players instead of copies sold to swindle their numbers to be higher than they actually were. And look at how Sandfall responded to their milestone. They said, "A milestone for us, reached sooner than we'd ever imagined. Thank you all." Again, just grateful, pleasant, and mature. No punching down, no stupid nonsense. Wow, imagine that. Just releasing your game and letting it speak for itself and not ruining your image in the name of some stupid pandering nonsense. Even the female characters actually, dare I say, look like real women from a Western game in 2025? What is this? Where are the hit pieces attacking the game for making men and women look like actual men and women? Oh right, they won't, because they know if they do, they'll get dogpiled by the entire internet, and for good reason. And like I said earlier, knowing that this game came to be out of the ashes of Ubisoft, it just makes me wonder how many other experiences like these are currently being chained down by these mega corporations who refuse to take risks and deliver smaller but far superior experiences instead of their rehashed tired franchises again and again. Because if these devs pitched Clair Obscur to Ubisoft while working there, we all know they would have shut this game's pitch down super fast. Imagine pitching this to Ubisoft. So we want to make a 30-hour turn-based RPG game that is heavily story-driven and relies on character emotions. We also want to make a game that isn't technically open world at all, has an overworld map where you can run around like in classic RPGs. Oh yeah, also we don't want to do anything like a battle pass or tons of paid cosmetic DLCs or a cash shop either. Also, the game won't be full price, and it'll also offer about 30 hours of side content too. Are you kidding me? Ubisoft would have lynched these devs for even trying to propose this game to them. They would burn this game's pitch with their cigars and tell these devs to shut up and go make another Assassin's Creed. And don't forget to put a chick in it and make her lame and gay while you're at it. And I can only imagine how many more brilliant ideas developers within this industry have right now that simply cannot come to fruition simply because these big publishers aren't willing to make them because they can't monetize it to hell and back or add stupid agenda slop in it like they usually do. You ask me, Clair Obscur is a game, like I said at the beginning, that technically shouldn't exist. Everything this game is represents the antithesis of what the executives and publishers want from video games today. Notice how I didn't say what players want, because in fact this is what we want actually. We want cool, unique experiences like this game, but it doesn't really fit the mold of the industry, yet the reception both fan-wise and critically, well, it paints a different picture. Because how long can this industry, especially in a Western sense, continue to keep pushing agenda slop in live service games for? We already saw how PlayStation has canceled a dozen live service games already, leaving their first-party studios sitting 5 years into their current console's lifespan with barely any memorable PlayStation exclusive experiences to define it by. Instead, they've like remastered or remade Last of Us 1 and 2 already like 4 times instead. And by this point in the PS4 or even the PS3's life cycle, we had dozens of great experiences, but the industry now in the PS5 era is all about things that frankly I just don't care much about, if I'm being honest. I'm just losing interest in live service games. I'm even finding it hard to play Marvel Rivals at times. I played Fortnite recently with friends after saving my game in Clair Obscur, and oh my god, dude. The boredom that I felt playing Fortnite following Clair Obscur was tangible, let me tell you. It was like going from eating a Michelin star steak with all the potatoes and beautiful salad and a nice rum and coke to suddenly being given Little Caesars pizza that's been in the fridge for like 2 days pretty much. And like, I'm not saying eating pizza is bad, but if I had to choose between that or a beautiful steak, I know what I'm picking. And that's the thing, if there's anything I've noticed this year is that real passion is what wins players, and even the industry come awards time too. Think about it, right? When was the last time a truly live service game won Game of the Year at the Game Awards? I can tell you because I remember. It was 2016 when Overwatch won it. Ever since Overwatch, we've seen countless ripoffs from Concord, Battleborn, hell, even Marathon to a degree is doing similar slop too, even now, and the response to Marathon's alpha has been, well, not great to put it lightly. Yet every other game that won Game of the Year since at either the Game Awards or whichever website has been resoundingly single-player games. Sure, some of them have co-op, Elden Ring for example, or like It Takes Two won Game of the Year as well, but most of the time it's single-player games. Elden Ring again, Sekiro, God of War 2018, Astro Bot, Baldur's Gate 3, the list goes on. All these games were passion projects made by talented developers. Hell, even to this day, you can go look at Baldur's Gate 3's player counts on Steam to show you how a single-player game that is made with passion can still reel in players years later. Actually, let's go look at Baldur's Gate 3 Steam chart numbers right now, and oh, look at that, over 100,000 players for a single-player game that is almost 2 years old at this point. Imagine that. No battle passes, no microtransactions, no cash shops, nothing. Just a great RPG that gave people the choice to make the adventure however they wanted it to be, and look at how it's paying off for them. And I see Clair Obscur being beloved in a similar fashion to Baldur's Gate 3. Will it have the same staying power player-wise in 2 years? I don't know, but I can say I wouldn't be surprised if Clair Obscur doesn't win some form of Game of the Year somewhere, or at the very least, best music, maybe story, studio, something like that, because it's very clear that the industry is dictated and controlled from the top by the executives of these companies. And all they want is money, and the easiest way to make money to them is to make something people know and then monetize the bejesus out of them, and frankly, I'm tired of it, I really am. I find myself more often than not seeking out unique single-player experiences instead. My 3 favorite games of the year so far are Clair Obscur, the first Berserker Kazan, and Mandragora Whispers of the Witch Tree. These 3 games were all made by talented dev studios that offered unique takes on their genres that were wholly at their core single-player games that didn't inject political nonsense into themselves, or make the player pay loads of money afterwards for content. We need more games like Clair Obscur, Kazan, or Mandragora, and then some. We need these games that these executives might think shouldn't exist because they're not monetizable enough. There's not enough forced diversity. Where's the cash shops? We can add weekly and daily challenges to force players to keep playing our games for currency and whatnot. So we can then put their engagement numbers in a spreadsheet to show investors so they give us more money so we can keep buying more yachts. The fact you had people like Ken Levine, the creator of BioShock and BioShock Infinite, playing Clair Obscur and saying this on Twitter, where he said, "Watching the opening of Clair Obscur and feeling humbled as an artist, what a masterful and heartbreaking setup for a story." You know how much praise that is? That's like Santa Claus coming to your house personally on Christmas to give you your gift himself. We don't see games like this often is the point, and I think we need to support games like this more now than ever before. Because the way the industry wants to go is to charge you even more for less in the future. Nintendo wants you to spend $90 on the next Mario Kart, dude. That's almost 50% more money for Mario Kart than it is pretty much to buy Clair Obscur right now. You gotta be kidding me. Look, I can see the industry's having an identity crisis. They want to push one thing, which is the same franchises over and over again, without much change to continue their cash gravy trains, but it's obvious that many players, like myself, we just want unique games again. I miss the Xbox arcade era of games. I miss when Sony was releasing weird unique games every other month, like The Unfinished Swan or Concrete Genie. I miss the great games of the PS3 era, like Infamous or Eternal Sonata, these games that weren't trying to become my life for the next 1,000 hours, or demand that I spend all my life savings to get the most out of their experiences. I just miss these games that respected my time, my energy, my wallet, and most importantly, my intelligence. I'm tired of hollowed out games that think checking boxes is what makes a game good, instead realizing it's the people who make them instead. The fact these devs couldn't make this game at Ubisoft and had to leave is what irks me the most. Is not that these games aren't capable of being made, that the talent isn't there when surely it clearly is. is. It's simply that these companies are refusing to allow their developers to make what they really want to make. When you compare Marathon to Clair Obscur, it should tell you everything. Because Marathon feels more like a game that was being made by developers who were told what they should make instead of allowing them to make what they actually wanted to make in the first place. And Clair Obscur is simply that. It's weird. It has bizarre level design locales like an underwater world that you can breathe in somehow. The enemies look freaky and messed up at times. The characters feel like real people and they feel imperfect, which is great. And they aren't saying stupid real stuff like Tash and Dragon Age saying, "So I'm non-binary," and whatever else. It just feels like a game from a time where games were made with passion by developers who were eager to make something not because of monetary value, but simply because they really wanted to make art. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that should be celebrated. And maybe the industry can learn from this game that costs way less than the next inevitable Call of Duty or Division game. This game where there's like 8 hours of music that is made for it, where it's a weird experimental turn-based RPG that offers deep RPG complexities and harkens back to Legend of Dragoon of all things. And it calls back to when classics like Final Fantasy IX and more were what the industry was pushing instead of Call of Duty insert buzzword here, and Assassin's Creed Here We Go Again number 15. From what I've played so far of Clair Obscur, it has exceeded all expectations and delivered something truly memorable. And the fact it costs way less than most games do, yet has more than those games have and offers an experience the industry doesn't seem able to make due to corporate oversight, it truly is a game that shouldn't even exist, and yet it's here and I hope you play it. Even if you don't like turn-based RPGs, I hope you give it a try and see that it is nowhere as simple to play as you might believe it to be. I hope there's more games like this in the future, and maybe, just maybe, the industry can learn from this game. Because Clair Obscur didn't just embarrass the industry, fellas, it exceeded what most of these studios are doing these days for a fraction of the price, and with less actual developers making it than probably the entire HR department at Ubisoft alone. And it's pathetic how Ubisoft and other companies take thousands of devs and years to deliver absolute slop, and it's very obvious that game budgets are completely out of whack, that they're full of bloat, and the medium, it just needs a reset. But what do you think about Clair Obscur? Are you going to play it? Are you already? What do you think? Let me know. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.